People think love announces itself loudly, like it's supposed to arrive with certainty and applause. But the truth is, the most important lessons about love usually come when the room is quiet and you finally hear your own thoughts. My name is Raghav, and I'm 85 years old. And for most of my life, I believed love was something you proved by enduring, by sacrificing, by staying even when parts of you slowly disappeared. What I didn't understand back then is how different real love looks once time has had its way with you. I grew up learning about love without anyone ever sitting me down to explain it. You learned it by watching. You watched your parents stay married, no matter how little they spoke to each other. You watched men work and women adjust. You watched silence get mistaken for strength and loyalty confused with suffering. Love, as I understood it, was commitment without complaint. You didn't ask too many questions. You didn't leave. You certainly didn't talk about feelings. If you were fed and sheltered and not alone, that was considered enough. I carried that understanding with me into adulthood, like a rule book I never questioned. When I met my wife, Mira, I was young and serious and convinced that responsibility was the highest form of affection. I didn't know how to be gentle with words, but I knew how to show up. I worked long hours. I paid bills on time. I stayed faithful. I believed that was love in its purest form. And for a long time, I thought we were doing well, simply because nothing had fallen apart. What I didn't notice, or maybe didn't allow myself to notice, was how little we were actually sharing with each other. We shared a home, a routine, children, and worries, but we rarely shared our inner lives. When Mira was tired, I told her it would pass. When she was quiet, I assumed she needed space. When she looked at me like she wanted something I couldn't name, I told myself I was imagining it. I thought love meant not needing too much. There were moments, looking back, where she tried to reach me. Small moments. A comment made twice because I didn't really hear it the first time. A sigh that lingered longer than it should have. An evening where she sat across from me and asked gently if I was happy. And instead of answering, I joked about being tired. I thought keeping things light was kindness. I didn't realize it was distance. Life moved fast, as it always does when you're busy being responsible. Children grow, parents age, work demands more than it gives back. Years passed not in big dramatic scenes, but in ordinary days stacked quietly on top of each other. Mira and I functioned well. People admired our stability. They said we were solid. I took pride in that word. Solid, reliable, unmoving. I didn't understand then that some things need to move in order to stay alive. The first crack in my certainty came much later, and not in the way people expect. It wasn't a fight or an affair or some sudden disaster. It was a simple afternoon when Mira fell ill and had to stay in bed for weeks. I was suddenly close to her in a way I hadn't been for years. I brought her food, adjusted pillows, checked medicines. I did everything efficiently. One evening, as I was leaving the room, she held my hand and said, almost apologetically, that she missed talking to me. I laughed it off at first. I told her we talked all the time. She didn't argue. She just nodded and let go of my hand. That moment stayed with me in a way I couldn't explain. It bothered me because I didn't know how to fix it with effort or discipline. I didn't know how to respond to something so quiet and honest. I told myself it was the illness talking, that things would go back to normal. But normal never felt the same after that. I started noticing how often we filled silence with television, how rarely we asked each other questions without a purpose, how easily we avoided anything that felt vulnerable. I wanted to change something, but I didn't know how to step out of a role I had been playing for decades. Being dependable had become my identity. I was afraid that if I stopped performing it, there would be nothing underneath. Mira recovered physically, but something between us never quite returned. We continued as we always had, but there was a softness missing that I only recognized after it was gone. When she passed away years later, people told me I had been a good husband. They said I had done everything right. I nodded and thanked them, because that's what you do. But inside, a different question was forming, one no one else could answer for me. In the months after her death, I spent a lot of time alone, not because I had no one, but because I needed to sit with memories without interruption. That's when love started to look different to me. I realized that I had confused love with duty and mistaken consistency for connection. I had loved Mira in the ways I was taught, but I had not loved her in the ways she needed most. Love, I came to understand, is not proven by how much you endure, but by how much you are willing to see. It's not about staying no matter what, but about staying present even when it's uncomfortable. I had believed that avoiding conflict was kindness, when sometimes it's just fear dressed up as peace. I had believed that being strong meant being quiet, when often it just means being unreachable. At my age, you start losing people regularly. Friends, siblings, familiar faces that once filled rooms. And every loss strips away another illusion. You stop pretending you have endless time. You stop believing you'll get around to important conversations later. You see patterns more clearly because there's less future left to distract you. That's when love stops being theoretical and starts being painfully specific. I think about Mira now, not with guilt exactly, but with a kind of tender regret. Not the dramatic kind that begs for forgiveness, but the quieter kind that wishes it had asked better questions. I wish I had asked her what she was afraid of. I wish I had told her when I felt unsure, instead of hiding behind certainty. I wish I had understood that love doesn't weaken when you speak honestly. It deepens. If you're listening to this and you're younger, you might think these realizations are obvious. You might believe you already understand love better than we did. I hope that's true. But understanding something in theory and living it every day are very different things. Love is easy to define and hard to practice because it asks you to be seen without guarantees. At 85, love no longer looks like sacrifice alone. It looks like attention. It looks like listening without planning your reply. It looks like asking questions you're afraid of the answers to. It looks like allowing the people you love to change without taking it as a betrayal. It looks like choosing closeness even when distance feels safer. I don't tell you this to make you afraid of regret. Regret is not a punishment. It's a teacher that arrives late but speaks clearly. If I could offer you anything from where I stand now, it would be this gentle reminder that love is happening in the small moments you think don't matter. The pause before you respond. The curiosity you choose instead of assumption. The vulnerability you risk when it would be easier to stay guarded. I loved my wife and she loved me, but love could have been warmer, more alive, more shared. That truth doesn't erase what we had. It simply shows me what was possible. And maybe that's the real gift of age. Not wisdom in the way people imagine it, but clarity without urgency. If someone you love is still sitting across from you, still asking questions, still reaching in small ways, don't wait to understand love differently. Later is quieter, lonelier, and much more honest. Love does not need to be dramatic to be deep, but it does need to be awake. And if you can keep it awake, you will already be doing better than I did for most of my life.